By the time the speeches started, I had already understood my position in the room. Table 19, near the exit, close enough to see the dance floor, far enough that no one would notice if I left. The venue was one of those restored industrial spaces, exposed brick, hanging lights, polished concrete floors that made everything echo slightly. I toured it with them 3 months earlier when they were deciding between this place and a vineyard outside the city. I'd asked practical questions about guest capacity and catering load-in times. My brother had squeezed my shoulder and said, "See, this is why we need you." I thought he meant included. The slideshow began during the second round of drinks. Childhood photos, soccer games, birthdays, vacations. I watched my own childhood move past without me. There was the backyard treehouse I built, my brother standing proudly inside it. The photo had been cropped tighter than I remembered. There was our high school graduation, him in the center, my shoulder barely visible at the edge of the frame. At first, I told myself it was coincidence, editing, aesthetic choices. Then came the family photo they had taken earlier that afternoon. Parents seated, bride and groom standing behind them, cousins flanking both sides. I wasn't in it. I had been there. I remembered standing to the left of my mother. I remembered adjusting my tie and stepping aside when the photographer repositioned someone. Apparently, I had stepped too far. The best man's speech lasted 12 minutes. He mentioned my brother's loyalty, his humor, the way he always showed up for the people he loved. I clapped when everyone else did. No one mentioned that I'd paid the venue deposit when the original check bounced, or that I'd handled vendor contracts because my brother hated paperwork, or that when they were short on the catering balance 2 weeks ago, they'd asked if I could temporarily cover the final payment while the bride's father moved some funds around. "It's just a formality," she'd said, smiling. "We'll transfer it before the event." The charge was still pending on my card. After the speeches, I found my brother near the bar. "Hey," I said, "quick question." He was flushed with champagne and attention. "Make it fast." I noticed I wasn't in the slideshow or the family photo. He blinked like I'd asked something mildly inconvenient. Before he could answer, his bride stepped beside him, lace sleeves catching the light. She tilted her head slightly, studied me. Then she smiled, not cruelly, just cleanly. Honestly, she said, we didn't want background characters in our memories. It landed without volume. No one else heard it. My brother didn't correct her. For a second, I felt heat behind my eyes. Not anger, exactly. More like recognition. Like someone had finally said out loud what had always been implied. Reliable, supportive, not central. I nodded. "Got it," I said. I returned to table 19 and sat down. The first course was scheduled for 7:30. I knew because I had confirmed the timeline with the catering manager 2 days earlier when she called about final head count adjustments. At 7:12, I stepped outside under the string lights and dialed the number saved in my phone. "Hi, this is Daniel Hart," I said, "regarding tonight's event." Her tone shifted immediately to professional warmth. "Yes, Mr. Hart, we're just about to begin service. I need to withdraw authorization on the final payment," I said. A pause. "I'm sorry, the remaining balance hasn't cleared? You told me service wouldn't proceed without confirmation." Another pause, longer this time, papers shuffling faintly in the background. "That is correct. I'm not authorizing it." Silence thickened between us. "Understood," she said finally. "In that case, we'll need to notify the event coordinator." "Thank you," I replied. I hung up and stayed outside a moment longer. The air was cool. Laughter drifted through the open doors. When I walked back in, nothing had changed yet. Then I saw the catering staff hesitate near the kitchen entrance, trays held steady, no movement toward the tables. At 7:34, the event coordinator approached the head table. She crouched slightly to speak at eye level with the bride and groom. I couldn't hear her words, but I recognized the posture. Calm, logistical, unmistakable. My brother's smile faltered first. The bride straightened, confusion flickering across her face. Guests began noticing the delay.
Conversations thinned. Forks remained unused beside folded napkins. At 7:41, my phone vibrated. "What did you do?" my brother texted. I didn't respond. At 7:43, my mother appeared at my table. "There's an issue with the catering," she whispered. "They're saying the payment didn't go through." I met her eyes. It didn't. Her face shifted, hurt, then understanding, then something more complicated. "Why would you do this?" she asked. I considered the question carefully. "They didn't want background characters," I said. Across the room, I watched my brother stand and move quickly toward me. The bride followed, dress gathered slightly to avoid the floor. "What is going on?" she demanded, her composure thinning. "The final payment was on my card," I said evenly. "You said you'd transfer it before the event." "We were going to," she snapped. "This is humiliating." I looked at her for a long second. "Being edited out was humiliating," I said quietly. My brother's jaw tightened. "You couldn't just talk to us?" "I did." Silence stretched between the four of us. The event coordinator hovered nearby, professionally neutral. "Service can still proceed if payment is made immediately. Otherwise, we'll need to delay service." The authority in her tone wasn't emotional. It was procedural, concrete. My brother pulled out his phone. His hands weren't steady. "How much?" he asked. I told him the number. He stared at me. Something between anger and realization flickered there. "You are just gonna sit there?" "Well, not to destroy the wedding, just to stop being invisible." 10 minutes later, I received the transfer notification. I stepped aside with the coordinator and authorized the charge. At 8:02, the first course reached the tables. Applause broke out, nervous, scattered. The reception resumed, slightly dented. I stayed long enough to watch them eat. No one asked me to join the head table. No one added me to a photo. When dessert was announced, I stood, picked up my jacket, and walked toward the exit. My brother caught up to me near the doors. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know," I replied. He hesitated. "You're not a background character." I studied his face, trying to decide whether he believed it or just needed the evening to stabilize. "Then don't treat me like one," I said. Outside, the night felt larger than the venue. I didn't feel victorious. I felt visible. And for now, that was enough.